Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for spending part of your Saturday with me here today. My name is Shawn Nelson. I am the Director of Operations for a nonprofit membership association called the Independent Carrier Safety Association. We go by ICSA because it's a little easier to say. And we're going to talk today about safety. So, you're a driver, you're working for a big company. You've all heard this story before. You recognize that you're good at what you do. You feel like you could make more money going out on your own. You gather the funding. You have a rich uncle that helps fund you. You get some financing, and you go out and you buy 5 trucks. We're going to call your company the American Dream LLC, because that's really what it is, right? You've gone out. You've got your own company, you're running your business, you're responsible for your success. You're focused on what? Getting freight, getting routes, getting stuff that's going to make you money so that you can make this dream a success. But you're also going to need drivers. You're going to need people to drive those 5 trucks. Well, you're going to drive one. You're going to get, let's say, your brother, your wife's brother, your brother-in-law, your cousin, and then a buddy that you were working with at that big carrier. You know these people, you trust these people, you know what kind of drivers they are. You're ready to go. You've got the freight, you've got the trucks, you've got the drivers, you're off and running. Everything's going great. But what really do you know about what happens with these trucks? You hand the keys over to the driver, and then what do they do? As long as it gets from point A to point B, everything's fine, right? Well, you know that you drive safely, so driver 1 is fine. But driver 2, your brother, did you know that he follows the vehicle in front of him way too closely on a regular basis? Oftentimes less than a second behind that vehicle? If you're following the vehicle behind you too closely, that's all you can see. You're following a truck at less than a second, and you can see the back of that truck, and that's about it. Well, that's a very dangerous situation. What about driver 3, your brother-in-law? Did you know that he speeds excessively? That he's going over 80 miles an hour sometimes down the freeway? Did you know that driver number 4, your cousin, speeds up and slams on the brakes? Drives pretty recklessly. He's hitting those brakes hard, riding the brakes, especially in traffic. What about driver? I guess here's a video shows you an example of hitting the brakes pretty hard. That driver was able to save a pretty bad situation, but could have saved it by going a little slower. By operating more safely, watching what was going on around so he wasn't hitting the brakes so hard. Let's talk about driver 5, your longtime buddy. Did you know that he uses meth to stay awake while he's driving? Now, he gets from point A to point B, but is he operating safely? So how could you know? How could you know what was going on these trucks with these drivers that was causing an unsafe situation? Well, when you're working for the big carrier, they had people who you never really wanted to talk to, right? They had a safety department. The guys wearing the black hats. The ones that if you got a call from them, it probably wasn't great news. If you got a call from safety, it's probably because you did something wrong and you didn't want to take that call. So, what profit is gained by this big carrier that was putting all this money into safety? Did they make money off of it? No. So why do they do it? Well, the reason why they do it is because it saves them money. Big carriers invest in safety, tens of millions of dollars in safety, because it prevents crashes and it's good for business. Because they know that any crash prevented, and it's hard to tell when a crash is prevented. You have no idea how many crashes you prevent, by operating safely, but because it risks something that could hurt your people and can hurt your business. So they go above and beyond what's required. We just heard the FMCSA talk about some of the requirements for keeping your trucks on the road. These big carriers go above and beyond that in order to stay safe and save money. There's things that are more stringent than what's required, but they're going to put your business, this American Dream LLC, in a position to be profitable. So the best accident is one that doesn't happen. But what else can come about? How can being safe make you more profitable? When you're riding the brakes, that causes excessive wear and tear not only on the brakes but on the tires. It uses more fuel. Those are three of the biggest costs that you have as a carrier: fuel, brakes, and tires. And you're going through them a lot faster if you're driving recklessly. You're going through all three of those more quickly. So if you're driving safely, you're reducing those costs. You're also saving costs on your insurance. Because they know that you're operating safely, they can tell that you deserve a lower rate. And so your premiums can go down based on your safe operations. You get better relationships with shippers, with brokers. They're going to give you better freight and better rates if they know that they can trust you with what they've got. The research bears this out. ATRI, the American Truck Research Institute, has done a study that large carriers, their costs for insurance and claims are about half of the cost for small carriers per mile. Because the big carriers put so much emphasis on operating safely. Now, all of these things can give a big carrier a competitive advantage. The fact that they can put so much money into it. Let's just look at what it costs to have a safety department. Well, here's an example of a tire that blew out because the driver wasn't operating safely. Breaking down the costs. You can hire a safety manager. Going to cost you $75,000, $90,000 a year. You can take safety training. About $400 a course. You'll probably need about 20 courses per driver. Webinars. There are a lot of webinars out there. They'll charge about $100 per. You can also get a camera and the subscription that's going to cost you about $195, $200 a month. So you can put all those costs in and then compete with the large carriers as a small carrier. Well, let's talk about how to operate safely. Something to do to get rid of the competitive advantage that those large carriers have. So the first thing you need to do is create a plan. Come up with a safety plan that shows that you know what you're doing, you have everything in a row. It's going to help you if you ever end up in litigation, but it's also going to give you guideposts of what to do in order to operate safely. Now, that plan has to have certain elements that are going to help you through it. The biggest one, and we all talk about it all the time, is cameras. Video is the best evidence. I'm not talking about a cheapy camera. You can go on Amazon and get one for $80 right now. Yeah, that's fine. But there are good, reputable cameras that you can get. Event recorders, forward-facing event recorders that are going to do so much more, that are going to help your business. Everybody knows how a camera can help a commercial driver in a lawsuit. They can show what happened. A side swipe, yeah, that's your word against theirs until you've got the video that shows you were staying in your lane and it was the other driver. I've seen the numbers. It's something like 90% of crashes are caused by the non-commercial driver, by the driver in that four-wheeler that isn't a professional and doesn't know what they're doing like the professional driver does. Shows exactly what happens and who was at fault, but a good camera system is going to do so much more. A good camera system is going to help you coach your drivers to make a good driver even better. Each of the dangerous driving behaviors that we talked about with your 5 drivers, you're going to get notifications from your camera that that happened. If they're following too close, if they're driving at excessive speed. You can have all those sent to your email on a daily basis or even when it occurs. You can have that information sent to you to show exactly what's happening if they're driving too fast for conditions. So we talked about driver 3 going too fast. Here's one of the videos that was captured. You can see the weather conditions here. What should you do if you've got wet conditions, slick roads? Slow down. Here's this vehicle that's going faster than the four-wheeler next to them. Commercial vehicle. Looks like a little bit of control's lost here. So now we've got video of exactly what happened, but we could have prevented that by talking to the driver beforehand and talking about slowing down. Driving slower than they feel like is safe. As soon as you're driving slow as you feel is safe, back it off a little bit. With that information, you can help your drivers improve. Well, we talked about the one safe driver that you've got. Who's that safe driver? It's you, right? But maybe you've developed some habits that you don't even recognize that this camera can help you avoid over time. Even the best professional driver can find out something that they can do to help their driving be safer. The NFL teams, best players in the world, right? The best football players in the world. You watch them during the game, they're sitting there looking at video. How can I get better? How can I improve my performance and be the best player I can be? This video can help even you, even the best driver, improve. Now, I've got one more point to make about cameras, because everything up to this point has been negative. But they can also help you find the positive in your drivers. How do you think it's going to make a driver feel if you get a video that shows that they're following too closely, but it turns out it was because they got cut off by that driver in front of them? And instead of slamming on the brakes and creating another unsafe condition, they just slowly backed off. Yeah, they were following too closely, but they could have prevented a crash that would have been caused by that four-wheeler. How do you think it's going to make them feel if you call them up and say, hey, you did a great job with this. I saw the video, and you did fantastic. How do you think it's going to make the driver feel if they get a bonus based on their safety performance? Or if you even turn it into a game and say, hey, we're getting scored by this camera company. Whoever has the best score wins, you name it. You create incentives for them to operate safely and be on your side in our goal to be safe and profitable at the same time. There are also situations that we've all had. You're in a truck stop, you get hit, right? Somebody bumps into you, causes a couple $100 worth of damage to your chrome. Well, if you act swiftly enough, you can get the video of that. Now we know exactly who did it. We can get the video that reads the driver's, or the license plate, of that vehicle that hit you, and you can go back and recover that. So it's not all bad, and there are many positives that can come out of using cameras. Well, what about our driver number 5? We've got the safety plan, we've got the cameras. How are we going to find out that he's using meth? Because if you rely on the DOT mandated drug testing, the urine testing, right? Meth is actually one of the easiest ones to avoid detection on, and I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but if you cycle, if you stop using meth for a few days before the urine test, you're going to be able to beat it. So how do we find out that our buddy driver number 5 is using meth? We have advanced hair testing. If you use hair testing instead of urine testing, you've got about an 11% more chance of finding it out. Look at the numbers for the positive tests on hair compared to urine. It's staggering, the difference. Marijuana is one of them that stays in your system the longest. And a marijuana test will hit positive for about a month in a urine test. It's about a year for a hair test. It stays in your hair. Now, some of you are looking at me and wondering, okay, well, what do we do with somebody that doesn't have a ton of hair? I was hair tested for a position. They cut some hair off my arm. Fortunately, I came out negative. But if you put this advanced drug testing in, you're going to keep the casual drug user off the road, or at least out of your truck. Now, if you were here for the FMCSA, they talked about having actual knowledge of drug use. One of my beefs with the regulations is even though you have a positive test with a hair test, they don't consider that actual knowledge because it's not one of the DOT mandated tests. And so that driver can leave you and go to the carrier down the road and get a job, the carrier that doesn't do hair testing, but at least they're not in your truck. At least you're keeping them out of your truck. You're keeping you safe. So if your safety plan, if your drug testing program is to have any teeth, it has to be zero tolerance. You have to make sure that you're not allowing anybody that is even a casual drug user into your truck so that you make sure that you stay safe. So you make sure that your company is not going to be the one that has that crash caused by the casual drug user. So we have all of that in place. We've got our safety plan. We've got our cameras. We've got our drug testing. Well, now we're going to need to hire a new driver because we just found out that we've got a driver that was using drugs. So what do you do? What criteria do you use? How do you get that all figured out to figure out how we're going to bring in somebody that knows what they're doing, that's a safe driver? What are we going to go through in order to get there? Well, that's part of our safety plan. Now, you've got a couple of options on how to do it. We talked about the costs of doing it without ICSA, of going on your own, hiring the safety manager, drafting the plan, having the webinar, doing the safety training. You can do it on your own. You can be your own safety department. Or you can join the Independent Carrier Safety Association. The membership fee is $120 a year. That's broken out to $10 a month. It's $2 for each additional truck. So if we're talking about this 5-truck carrier, American Dream, that's $18 a month, and you get a safety consultant. And let's talk about our safety consultants for just a minute. At one point, between the 4 of them that we had, there was over 150 years of experience just in safety. They've all been behind the wheel of a truck. They know what they're doing. They've been in the safety department of the large carriers. They know how best to utilize the cameras, the video evidence that they get. They know how to coach the drivers. We've had carriers that have called in just to talk to them about, hey, what do I do? How do I even start this program out? And they've been able to walk them through getting a safety program implemented and really, really dialing in a focus on safety. Here's your first step. Call me back next week. We'll talk about your next step. If there's anything that he loves more than talking to people about safety, I don't know what it is. And these guys know more about safety. They've forgotten more this morning than I've known my entire life. They're super smart, and they're ready to talk to you about it. We also have monthly webinars that talk about the trucking issues, that talk about how to operate safely. The FMCSA, if you were here for their presentation, they talked about data queues. We have on our board a retired law enforcement officer that led the data queue program in Kansas. He put out a series of, I think, 3 articles and did 2 webinars on how you can file data queues and be successful in challenging the determinations that the officer made. We've got a first gear, that's our training program. It's available to all of our members without any additional cost. So you're saving all of the money for the safety training, for the webinars, by joining up $120 a year. Now, there is a $30 telematics fee. And we also provide you with the ability to purchase cameras at cost normally reserved for the big carriers. Usually runs about $100 a month, so that you can have that forward-facing camera that's such an integral part of operating safely. One of the other things that we provide as a service to our members is a model safety plan. Now, you can come in and customize it to your heart's desire. You can make it exactly what you want it to be, but it's there for you. You can use it in order to have that structure about a whole lot of things. You know, we've talked about some of the basics, but we want to make sure that your safety plan is something that is designed for you, but that you're going to be able to use in order to operate safely. We have other programs available, other products that are available for safety. I encourage you to go to our website, safecarriers.org. Look around at some of the partners that we have. We have U.S. Legal, that's a legal services benefits program, ATBS, that'll help you do your taxes. All of these things designed to protect you and your business, make you safer and more profitable. We have two newsletters that come out on a monthly basis. One of them with general industry information, one of them specifically about regulations that the government's putting out, the regulatory roundup. We want you to know what's going on in the industry, and we work very hard to make sure that our members are up to date on what's happening. Now, one of the things that I've learned over the course of my career, and I worked at the safety department of one of the big carriers, and one of the very first things that I learned when I went in, and I guess it wasn't something I learned, it was something that I saw. My mentor, a guy that has been in safety for 40 years and knows more about it than anybody else I knew, but he's a little bit of a crusty guy. The one time that I ever saw him emotional was just after I started, and he was in a meeting. He had to tell us that one of our drivers passed away in an accident. It's the only time I ever saw him get emotional, and it hadn't happened for a long time, but he took that very personally, considered that happened on his watch. It taught me to never forget that we're talking about people. It's one thing to talk about the trucks, it's one thing to talk about keeping the freight safe and the truck safe and the trailer safe, but we're talking about people who are putting their lives at risk, doing something that's so necessary for the economy of this country. And I'll never forget the fact that that's really what we're doing this for, is to keep people safe and make sure that everybody gets home safely. The second thing that I learned, and this is something that he told me, was, hey, the safest truck is one that's sitting in the lot locked up. That truck's pretty safe, but it's also not making any money. In order to make money, you've got to be out hauling freight. And so let's take everything that we can do to make that truck that's outside the lot, that's operating, that's running freight, let's do everything we can to make it safe. To make sure that truck gets from A to B as safely and as profitably as possible. Now, these things that we've talked about today, a safety plan, forward-facing cameras, drug testing, making sure that you know what's going on your truck, all of those things are what it takes in order to make sure that you're operating as safely and as profitably as possible. Thank you very much. I'm here for any questions if you've got any.